I let my elderly neighbor borrow my Snowblower during a blizzard. A week later, I asked for it back. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "That was a gift. You can't just take it back." I thought she was confused, until she filed a civil claim saying I donated $1,200 worth of equipment to her household. I tried to talk to her daughter. She said, "We'll see you in court, thief." 2 months later, they tried the same trick with my brother. This time, I recorded everything. And what the judge said in that courtroom changed our whole street. I'm 43. I live in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I've been on the same street for almost 16 years. I bought my house in 2009, after the housing crash. Raised my kids here. It's one of those neighborhoods where everyone keeps their head down, but still waves when they see you. You know how it is, quiet, nothing too dramatic. At least, that's what I thought. The woman across the street from me, Mrs. Gellner, has lived there even longer. She's this tiny old woman, white hair, usually in a blue fleece coat no matter the season. Her husband passed maybe 10 years ago. Her daughter, Cheryl, is in her 50s and shows up every now and then. I never had any real problems with them. Actually, I used to think they were nice. When my dog died, Mrs. Gellner brought over a little card and some muffins. That kind of person. So in January, we got hit with one of the worst snowstorms I've seen in years. A proper whiteout. My Snowblower is top tier, a Honda HSS 928, dual stage, electric start, heated grips, all that. I bought it after I slipped and fell shoveling a few years ago. Paid just over $1,200 for it brand new, and I've babied it since day one. It's not a toy. It's a piece of equipment that I rely on. Anyway, I was nursing a sore back already when the blizzard hit, so I didn't do much the first day. I was just trying to stay ahead of it, a little bit at a time. Then I got a call, on my landline actually. It was Mrs. Gellner. She sounded worried. Said her daughter couldn't make it over because of the roads, and she didn't know how she'd clear her driveway. She asked if she could borrow my Snowblower. Said she wouldn't go far with it, just her driveway and maybe the sidewalk. I paused. I wasn't crazy about the idea, but I said yes. I even bundled up, walked it across the street, showed her how it worked, and told her to be careful with the auger. She thanked me over and over, and I walked home figuring she'd bring it back in a day or two. That was Saturday. By Friday, the sun was out, roads were plowed, and the snow was mostly melted. The Snowblower? Still in her garage. So I went over there. Knocked on her door. She opened it, smiled, then looked at me like she didn't understand why I was there. I asked politely, "Hey, do you mind if I grab the Snowblower? I'll need it soon with the ice coming." Her whole face changed. She narrowed her eyes and said real calm, "I thought you gave it to me. You said it was a gift." I almost laughed, thinking she misunderstood. "No, I just let you borrow it during the storm. I never said it was a gift." She folded her arms. "Well, I don't remember it like that. And unless you have some kind of contract, I don't see why you're here." I was stunned. I honestly thought she was having a memory issue or something. She was older, maybe she got confused. So I said, "Look, I don't want to make this weird. Can we just talk it through?" She didn't answer. Just closed the door. Next day, I get served with a civil claim. Filed by her, through her daughter, Cheryl. In it, they claimed I had donated the Snowblower to her as a gift, as an act of goodwill during the storm. The document literally said, "A gift was made voluntarily and with no stated expectation of return." They even had the nerve to claim I harassed her when I tried to get it back. They wanted to keep the machine and were asking for $500 more for emotional damages. My stomach sank. I called Cheryl. She picked up, laughed, then said, "We'll see you in court, thief," and hung up. That word again. Thief. I showed up to court a month later. I brought everything I had. Receipt, photos of it in my garage, texts where I said I was lending it. But there was nothing clearly stating, "This is not a gift." The judge seemed to be a decent guy, but he said the burden of proof was on me to prove I didn't give it away. With no clear evidence, he had to side with her. I was floored. I lost the Snowblower. Had to pay $210 in court fees. And then the whispers started. Neighbors asking each other what really happened. A few people looked at me like maybe I'd tried to scam a sweet old lady. I was furious. Not just about the Snowblower. About my name. About how I was made to look like a con. Then something happened that snapped everything into focus. 2 months later, my younger brother Brad calls me. He lives about a mile away, same city, different street. Cheryl had come by his house during another storm. Said her mother's driveway was buried and they had no equipment. He has a roommate, Jason. Jason had just bought a new electric Ego Snowblower from Lowe's. Cheryl asked to borrow it for just the night. They gave it to her. Then the next week, when they asked for it back, Cheryl said, word for word, "That was a gift. You can't just take it back now." Brad called me immediately. This time, we were ready. Brad has one of those Ring doorbell cams. He had full audio and video of her asking to borrow it. "Not a gift," she literally said. "Can we borrow it overnight?" "I'll bring it back once the snow clears." When the court date came, we showed up with everything. Video, timestamps, and also brought in my previous case file. We laid it all out for the judge. He played the video twice. Then looked at Cheryl and said something I'll never forget. "Ma'am, what you've done here isn't a misunderstanding. This is fraud. And you've done it more than once." He threw out their claim. Then ordered Cheryl to pay $1,200 in restitution to Jason. But that wasn't the end. The judge referred the case to the county prosecutor's office. Said there was reason to believe Cheryl was using her mother's age and reputation to trick people out of expensive equipment. Said it bordered on elder abuse. We've since learned we weren't the only ones. There was a neighbor 2 streets over who'd lost a pressure washer the same way. Another guy on my block said Cheryl tried to borrow his chainsaw last summer. Now, Cheryl is facing charges. Her mother, Mrs. Gellner, hasn't been seen outside in weeks. The once friendly waves and chit-chat have dried up. And most of the neighbors who once looked at me funny, they're silent now. I still haven't replaced the Snowblower. But I did buy a new padlock for my garage. And next time someone asks to borrow something, they're signing paperwork. After the court case with my brother, things around the neighborhood got tense. Word spread fast. Cheryl's scam was no longer a rumor, it was fact. People started pulling back. The lady next door, who used to gossip with Mrs. Gellner over coffee, suddenly stopped going over there. One guy even put up a sign on his fence. "Nothing here is a gift. Don't ask." I figured that would be the end of it. Cheryl was caught. The judge saw through her. Surely she'd back off now. But I underestimated just how far people will go when they feel embarrassed or exposed. 2 weeks after the hearing, I came home from work and found a flyer taped to my front door. It looked like one of those cheap black and white ones printed at home. It said in big bold letters, "Beware of neighbors stealing from seniors." Below that was a blurry picture of me in my driveway. And then, in smaller text, "He's been taken to court twice for harassing and threatening an elderly widow. Keep your property safe." I stood there for a long time, just staring at it. My wife came outside, took one look and said, "They're not done with us." She was right. Over the next week, I saw copies of the flyer on at least 4 other mailboxes. Even the church bulletin board on the corner had one. They weren't signed, but we all knew where they came from. I tried to stay calm. I figured if I didn't react, they'd stop. Then the police showed up. It was a Tuesday evening. I had just finished dinner when 2 patrol cars rolled up. The officer at the door asked if I'd recently made threats toward a vulnerable resident in the neighborhood. My stomach dropped. Cheryl had filed a police report. She claimed I'd come to their door again, threatening, shouting, saying I'd get my Snowblower back one way or another. It was a lie. I hadn't stepped foot on their property since the court case. I told the officer as much. He nodded but said they'd still have to document it. He asked if I had any kind of proof, video, witnesses. Luckily, I had a security camera installed on my front porch. The footage showed I hadn't even left my house that day. They left without pressing charges, but the message was clear: Cheryl was trying to make my life hell. So I made a decision. I started talking to the others on the block. Quietly. One by one. I knocked on doors and asked if they'd ever loaned Cheryl or Mrs. Gellner anything, and not gotten it back. 3 more neighbors told me yes. A snow shovel. A power drill. A brand new rug cleaner. All of them disappeared after being loaned out. None of them had ever spoken up. They didn't want drama. They didn't want to be accused of bullying an old woman. But now, they were pissed. One of them, Rick, a retired postal worker, said, "If you're gonna do something about this, count me in." That night, I put together a folder. I gathered the court documents, copies of the flyers, the police report, and statements from 5 neighbors. I made copies for everyone. Then I called the local news. It took some convincing, but after they saw the documents, one of the reporters from WGT24 agreed to meet with me. We sat in the back of a coffee shop while I laid it all out. She asked me one question. "Why are you doing this now?" I said, "Because next time, she might try it on someone who doesn't have a camera, or a brother who's been through it before. Someone who just gives up." 2 weeks later, the segment aired. They ran it as an investigative piece. They even went to Cheryl's house for comment. She slammed the door in their face. After that, it all exploded. More neighbors came forward, people who didn't even live on our block. Folks from other parts of town. Cheryl had been running this scam for years. One guy said she borrowed his chainsaw back in 2019 and never returned it. Another claimed she took his wife's sewing machine. I sent all of it to the county DA's office. And this time, they responded. The DA called me personally. Said they were opening a formal investigation into Cheryl and possibly Mrs. Gellner, too. They were treating it as a pattern of fraud and exploitation, especially because Cheryl was using her mother's age to shield herself. The fact that she'd filed false police reports and manipulated small claims court to her advantage? That made things worse. They asked if I'd be willing to testify if it came to that. I said yes without blinking. Around the same time, something strange started happening on our street. For years, Mrs. Gellner's house had been this quiet, blue-trimmed place with flower pots and lace curtains. Now, cars were showing up at odd hours. People in hoodies going in through the side door. Delivery guys coming at 1 a.m. Cheryl was clearly living there full-time now. No one saw Mrs. Gellner much anymore. Then Rick, the retired postal worker, told me something that hit hard. "She's selling stuff," he said. "Online." I found one of those local buy and sell pages. Snowblowers, yard tools, appliances. The profile uses a fake name, but the porch in the photos? It's hers. Same house number. Same flower pots. I pulled it up and nearly threw my phone. There it was, my Snowblower. Or at least, what I was 90% sure was mine. The same model, same scratches on the side. Listed as gently used. Asking $950. We tried to report the post to the site admin, but nothing happened. So Rick had an idea. "Let's set up a meet," he said. "Pretend to be buyers. Get her to confirm it's the same unit. We'll record everything." I was nervous about it. Felt like baiting a trap. But the DA's office said if we could get Cheryl admitting that she knew the item had been disputed in court, it could help show intent to defraud. So Rick messaged her. Said his name was Tom, wanted to buy a Snowblower for his son, and could meet up that evening. Cheryl responded in under 5 minutes. Told him to come by the house after dark. Said she preferred cash. We wired Rick up with a mic and had his phone recording video in his shirt pocket. I stayed in a parked car 2 houses down, watching like a hawk. Cheryl came out with the Snowblower and wheeled it onto the porch. Rick asked, "Hey, just curious, this thing looks brand new. Where'd you get it?" Cheryl laughed. "Some idiot neighbor gave it to my mom. Said it was a gift, then tried to take it back. We even won in court." "Can you believe that?" Rick asked. "Wow, he just gave it away?" She smirked. "People are stupid when they feel guilty. Anyway, you want it or not?" He said he'd think about it. And left. "That recording? We sent it to the DA that night. They called it gold." 2 days later, Cheryl got arrested. Fraud, theft by deception, filing a false police report, and witness intimidation. They were even looking into elder exploitation, depending on what they found out about how she used her mother's name in all these court filings. But here's where it got real dark. Once she was arrested, Adult Protective Services went to check on Mrs. Gellner. The report they filed, it was rough. The house was in bad shape. Mold, clutter, cold rooms, spoiled food. Mrs. Gellner hadn't seen a doctor in over a year. Cheryl had moved into the master bedroom and was using her mom's Social Security checks to pay for her own car and credit card bills. Suddenly, what started as a stolen Snowblower looked a lot more like financial and emotional abuse. Mrs. Gellner was taken into temporary care. The county assigned a guardian while they sorted things out. The court set Cheryl's bail at $25,000. Her public defender tried to argue it was too high. The judge didn't budge. Cited a repeated pattern of manipulation and theft under the guise of familial trust. And just when I thought we'd seen it all, one more thing happened. A letter arrived at my house. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note in shaky cursive. It said, "I didn't know what she was doing. I'm sorry for lying. I just didn't want to lose her. She said we'd go to jail if I told the truth. I'm tired. Please forgive me. DG. DG equals Doris Gellner." I sat at the table holding that note for 10 minutes straight. She wasn't just a pawn. She was scared. She'd been covering for her daughter, probably for years. And now she was alone. I didn't know what to feel anymore. Part of me still wanted justice. The other part just felt sick that it had to come to this. Cheryl sat in county lockup for almost 2 months while they built the case. More people kept coming forward. Folks from years back who'd been tricked, bullied, or guilt-tripped into giving away expensive tools and appliances. Some had been too embarrassed to fight it. Others had tried and gotten shut down. But now, with the DA digging into everything, the pieces finally fit. They traced the online sales to Cheryl's old PayPal account. Found logs of over $8,000 in porch pickups over the past 3 years. Pressure washers, power drills, even a pair of electric hedge trimmers still registered to a man who had passed away. Cheryl had a pattern, targeting older neighbors, people too kind or soft-spoken to argue. And the worst part? She'd been using her mother to back it all up. Filing claims in her name. Dragging her into court to lie. Convincing her that if she didn't go along with it, they'd lose the house. It was elder abuse, plain and simple. Mrs. Gellner, Doris, ended up in a nursing home outside the city. The county froze Cheryl's accounts and started the process to get her declared financially unfit to manage her mother's affairs. The guardian assigned to Doris reached out to me, thanking me for bringing it to light. But I didn't feel proud. I felt tired. There was still a part of me that remembered the muffins she baked when my dog died. The holiday lights we both put up every year. The way she used to wave with both hands like she hadn't seen you in a month, even if it was just a day. The truth was, I should have known something was off when Cheryl started showing up more and Doris got quieter. I didn't pay attention. I stayed in my lane. That was my mistake. The court date finally came. Cheryl walked in with a new lawyer, hair tied back, no makeup, and this fake quiet voice like she was sorry. The prosecution laid it all out. Every item, every lie, every neighbor she tricked. They played the video of her laughing about my Snowblower. They showed her PayPal logs. They even brought in Doris's letter. When the judge gave Cheryl a chance to speak, she said, "I was trying to help my mom. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." The judge didn't flinch. He looked straight at her and said, "You hurt your mother. You used her. You turned her into a shield for your greed. That's worse than theft." He sentenced her to 18 months in state prison for fraud, with 5 years probation after. She also had to pay restitution to everyone, over $10,000 total. She turned to look at me as they cuffed her. I didn't say a word. Back home, things changed. People started talking again, not just to me, but to each other. Rick came over with a case of beer and said, "Told you she was trouble." We started clearing sidewalks for some of the older folks ourselves. Quietly. No favors owed. Just watching out for each other. A few weeks later, I bought a new Snowblower. Same model. Newer year. I named it Justice. I keep it in the garage. Locked tight. But every once in a while, I roll it across the street. Because Doris still writes me letters. Small ones. Simple. Just says thank you. Asks about the weather. She doesn't remember everything, but she always ends with, "Be careful out there. It gets slippery." She's right. It does.